In the beginning, I was a runaway who needed only to be somewhere else. Far away from everything. Just another delinquent, neurodivergent problem child nobody could solve. A truant. Haunted and hunted, and these miles and miles of dunes were my hideout. My sanctuary. Out here, I discovered, I could breathe, and I could be unseen. In those days, there weren't many people seeking their leisure here, joggers and walkers and picture takers, so I could perfect the art of being invisible, being nobody in a place that was itself hardly known, a nowhere of nothing but sand drifting mindlessly through the centuries, covering up everything, a refuge and haven for the animal fugitives hanging on in the margins of things. Here among the sands, I was subject only to the scrutiny of the wind, feeling out its way by whispering to itself and tasting the earth. Or now and then, the strange, sleek vixen, her gold eyes watching from a distance, puzzling over the lost boy, wandering the wrong way, deeper into the night. And how many nights did I wander here? I lost count. Sometimes 3 or 4 nights in a row, month after month, in all seasons. I made myself beds of sand and smoke under barricades of buckthorn, or scrambled among willow tangle wrapped in my grandfather's old green gabardine, hiding myself like a ghost under birches, shivering in the unquiet peace of the dark, half awake, half dreaming. Those nights are unforgettable, scrimshawed into my bones. Every time I nodded off, the cold would wake me again. I could hear the world slowly creak and groan and hum as it turned under the stars, muttering to itself. I would nod off and shiver and wake, and nod off and shiver and wake, until at last the day began to break, making the gulls scream in hunger and the dune slacks throw on their shawls of silver mist. Some mornings here in the crisp dawn light, my boots crunching icy sand or slipping on spring dew, I saw the whole duneland as a sort of abandoned theatre, a fabricated set hidden from the human world. And all the birds, my only companions, the oyster catchers and sanderlings feeding in the shore, the skylarks, the warblers, were marionettes, jerked this way and that on strings that fell from the stars. I watched them closely, as if their play held a secret, wondered at my part. Other mornings, I heard music, sudden splashes of melody and the sighing of the waves. I would startle and turn to catch the notes as they escaped. I learned to listen closely, carefully, listening and lusting as if there might always be more and deeper world to be found in a moment's turn. If I could just pay attention long enough to forget how hungry I was. I was often surprised by thoughts that seemed to come from outside of me, radio signals from outer space, lines of poetry, and I began to scribble them indecipherably in wet notebooks, the ink blushing with an apology as it concealed everything. Yes, I've lost count of the nights and days I wandered here, cold and alone and safe. I came as often as I could. I stopped going to school. I was hopelessly obsessed, possessed by the djinn of the dunes. What she'd offered me, I don't know, but I'd accepted it without hesitation. The place called to me. Stay for more, it seemed to say. Stay for longer. Like an addiction deepening its hold. And nobody ever found me out. No parent or teacher could follow me there. And so the years went by, and I pursued my affair as best I could, couch surfing, renting rooms, surviving on temporary dead-end jobs in factories and warehouses, often quitting in summer so my obsession wouldn't be disrupted. I saved and bought decent boots, binoculars, a rucksack, even eventually a tent. Then one day, a stroke of luck, I heard that an old semi-derelict cottage here had come up for rent, part of an abandoned dairy farm. A few damp rooms with a hearth among a straggling tumble of medieval walls, broken fences, and roofless barns. I jumped at the chance and moved in. A dream come true, a real life, and a house in the dunes. And so I settled down to a life of secluded but manageable rural poverty and casual labouring on farms here and there. I marvelled at the sand pouring through my fingers as if it were pure gold. I began to see the dunes as a sort of laboratory, an alchemist's laboratory, a temple without walls, claiming and altering my imagination as I submitted myself daily to the careful, patient observation of the changing seasons and moods of the place. I charted the relation of the positions of the stars to the comings and goings of weather systems, dreams, migratory birds, discovering and studying strange new languages in the world around me as I went. I became an expert in the secret lives of the foxes that coupled shrieking in the garden in the night. I befriended a pair of crows who would take bread almost from my hand. It was all a slow, steady transformation of the prima materia in the cold furnace of the sand. And very often it felt like I wasn't the one controlling the process. I was unlearning everything I'd been taught, getting free of my training, my education and socialization, rewilding myself, becoming alert for every miracle, and writing them down when they happened. Even so, I never dared allow myself to feel at home. Or so I thought. People like me can never own a house or a piece of land. We can always be moved on at the whim of a landlord. And after all, what does home mean anyway? What does ownership mean? What does belonging mean? Can any of us humans really belong anywhere, haunted by thoughts and words and doubts and dreams as we are, never quite able to overcome the sense of separation from the world, a separation that language has thrown around us, like a hedge of thorns, keeping us always at a remove from the things we seek to own or describe or love. Birds are woven into their world like threads in a tapestry. They move with quicksilver, mindless grace and alertness, perfectly attuned to everything else, while we humans stumble and doubt, falter and wonder and grieve and disappear in a cloud of inadequate words. Maybe when we believe ourselves to be home, we are in fact lost. And when we find ourselves lost, we are home. And yes, one day, sure enough, the eviction notice came. A phone call, followed by an official letter, followed by a bleak, frantic search for somewhere else, anywhere else, but there was nowhere. We were at the tail end of the COVID crisis, and nobody was moving. And so, quite quickly, court order came, and that was that. But only a fool would seek to make a home in a sand dune. So let's put that fool back in the pack and draw another card. The Lizard of Cups with vetch seed eyes. The silver bear turning in the night over Magma. The tolling bell in the buried city. Beaker child's bones in the box under the hearth. I is another. One morning I saw a woman at the gate. She seemed to have stepped out of the lake out of a fairy story, and the wind lifted her cloak and her long golden hair, and just for a second lifted her skirt also, and I glimpsed her thighs all scratched with blackthorn ink. She smiled without shame and dropped her suitcase on the driveway. I noticed her fingers were stained with dewberry juice, and her brooch was a burnet rose. "Well," she said, looking me up and down, "what are you waiting for?" What will we make of a man of sand, drifting between the seen and the unseen like a word told in the clouds? Because sand is the perfect disguise, polishing itself to a mirror, or like a veil over a face, concealing what it reveals and revealing what it conceals, blurring the lines we believed protected the real from the imagined, measuring the moment but not ever noticing the moment itself, giving surface to our persistence like a film of dust on the meniscus of a drop of dew. How do we trick the devil? We make him count every grain of sand in every dune in the world, of course. And by the time he's done, you and me will be long gone. Because we don't belong to a place by possessing it. We belong to a place by allowing it to possess us. And the face that just saw you in the mirror was never really there at all.